I sat on the kitchen floor, a dish towel still clenched in my hands, when the officer pressed a clear plastic bag into my palm. Inside was my son's phone, cracked, lifeless, colder than the night he died. Hours later, I learned he'd left me a final voicemail, a message meant for me. But before I could hear it, she erased it. "All right, before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching from." I was folding laundry when the doorbell rang, just after 10 on a Tuesday night. Nothing prepares you for two officers standing under a porch light, hats in their hands, trying not to look you in the eye. "Mrs. Lee?" "Yes." "There's been an accident." I remember their voices more than their words, steady, careful. A crash out on Route 219, sometime past midnight. A wet curve, a telephone pole, the front end of a silver Subaru crushed like a can. My son, Jordan. I don't remember much after that. Time doesn't pass normally when grief walks in. It loops, warps. The hours stretch and collapse in ways your body can't track. One moment I was on the kitchen floor with a dish towel in my hands. The next, I was standing in the garage staring at the passenger seat where he used to toss his gym bag. The police said there was no foul play. That's what they always say. One officer handed me a clear evidence bag, and inside it, Jordan's phone. It was cracked, dead, cold to the touch. Like him. They told me he must have been heading home from his girlfriend's place. Caitlin. I hadn't met her more than twice, always polite, always slightly distant, like someone just waiting out a scene they weren't cast in. She was the one who called the cops, they said, told them he hadn't texted when he left. She thought something might have happened. I didn't speak to her right away. I couldn't. 2 days later, I finally found the charger Jordan kept in the junk drawer. The phone took forever to light up, the screen flickering like it didn't want to come back. I went through his photos first, then the texts. Nothing odd. Nothing that told me why. Then I checked his voicemail. One saved message, one deleted. The deleted one was time-stamped 12:03 a.m. His car hit the pole at 1:10. My hands were shaking before I even hit restore. But the file was corrupted. Only the time and numbers showed. No audio. Just an echo of something he tried to say. One thing I never got to hear. It ate at me. Not just the message, but the fact it was gone. Who deletes a voicemail from someone who dies an hour later? The next morning, I drove to Caitlin's apartment. She opened the door already dressed in black, a legal pad in her hand, phone tucked between shoulder and ear. "Yeah, 6 wreaths total, 2 with lilies. No, that's fine. Just let me confirm with her mother." She looked at me, paused. "Let me call you back." She hung up. I stood there with the phone in my hand like it was Exhibit A. "Did you delete it?" She didn't flinch. "What?" "The voicemail. From Jordan. It's gone." She exhaled, slow, like she'd been rehearsing this conversation in her head. "He called me that night," she said. "He was upset, rambling." "About what?" Caitlin's face tensed, and she looked past me toward the apartment complex's parking lot. "He didn't mean what he said. You wouldn't have wanted to hear it." I stepped closer. "That's not your decision." She finally looked at me. Her voice flattened. "It was an accident, Marion. He wasn't thinking straight, and no, I didn't delete it. But if I had, I'd be doing you a favor." I felt something sharp rise in my throat, anger maybe, or the beginning of a sob. "You don't get to protect me from my own son." She didn't answer, just turned back toward the apartment, like I was already done. But as the door started to close, I caught it. The flicker of guilt behind her eyes. Not regret. Guilt. Something wasn't right, and I wasn't going to bury my son without knowing why that voicemail was erased, or what he'd tried to tell me before he died. The church was full of people who only knew parts of my son. Jordan's photo sat on an easel near the altar. That same senior year portrait, the one with his crooked tie and that half smile he only gave when he didn't want to be in front of a camera. There were lilies everywhere, like Caitlin had planned. All 6 of them. She stood up front in a fitted black dress, reading off a printed sheet like she was giving a press release. Her voice didn't crack once. Jordan had a calm soul. He hated conflict. He loved simple things. His car, late-night drives, playlists he wouldn't share with anyone. He was peaceful. Always. Peaceful? I felt my jaw tighten. He hadn't been peaceful for months. Not since he left that job at the solar startup. Not since the insomnia started. Not since their last fight, the one I overheard on speakerphone. His voice wasn't calm that night. It was cracked, like something was breaking inside of him and no one wanted to hear it. But here Caitlin was, rewriting the ending, softening the edges, turning him into something quiet and easy to miss. They passed out the program before the service, and I flipped through mine twice. No mention of me speaking, no space left for words from his mother. I caught Caitlin's eye before the closing hymn. She was talking to her aunt or cousin or someone who looked just like her, perfectly put together, managing grief like it was a wedding spreadsheet. She saw me, blinked, then smiled like she hadn't done anything wrong. When I approached her afterward, all she said was, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I must have forgotten to include you. Things have been so chaotic." Forgotten. You don't forget the mother of the man you're burying. You exclude her. The reception was held in the church hall, all potluck casseroles and beige plastic tablecloths. People came up to me with tilted heads and gentle hands, asking how I was holding up. I gave the same answers I'd given since the accident. One breath at a time. Still doesn't feel real. Lies that made them feel better for asking. I stepped outside to breathe. The air was thick with late summer heat, and the parking lot buzzed with cicadas and low conversation. "Mrs. Lee?" The voice was soft, male. I turned and saw a man in his 40s, plain suit, no tie. He held out his hand like he didn't want to scare me. "I'm Detective Carver. Just a routine follow-up. Mind if I ask a few things?" His tone was gentle, deferential, nothing like the uniforms who first knocked on my door. I nodded, still wary. "We've been reviewing Jordan's phone activity. Something unusual came up. A few inconsistencies in the metadata from the night of the crash. I can't share much yet, early stage, but thought you should know." My stomach dropped. "What kind of inconsistencies?" He hesitated. "Some activity that doesn't match the timeline. But it could be a glitch. Happens more often than you'd think. Just didn't want it catching you off guard if we follow up again." He handed me a card. "If anything comes to mind. Anything at all." I stared at the cardstock, heavy in my hand. Was the voicemail part of it? He tilted his head. "Voicemail?" But before I could answer, I heard her voice behind me. "There you are." Caitlin. She walked up like she belonged in the conversation. "Sorry, we were just about to cut the cake. His favorite, marble. Remember?" She placed a light hand on my arm. The detective gave her a polite nod and walked off, as if she'd dismissed him. I turned to her. "You don't have to keep pretending." Caitlin blinked. "Pretending what?" "That he was fine. That everything was fine. He wasn't." She folded her arms. "You're grieving. I get it." I stepped closer, voice low. "He called me. That night. I didn't get to hear the message, but I could feel it in my bones. He was not at peace. She didn't respond, just stared at me like I was the one rewriting the story. I looked back toward the church hall, the soft hum of polite mourning behind us. He tried to tell me something, I said. If I could still hear it, I would know. Caitlin's eyes dropped for half a second, just a flicker, and then she smiled. But it didn't reach her eyes. Grief has a sound. It's not sobbing, it's silence. Too much of it. The kind that hums in your ears when everyone else has gone home and the refrigerator is the only thing still breathing. That night, I sat on Jordan's bed, holding a mug of tea I never drank, and tried to remember the last thing he said to me. Not the last voicemail, the last conversation. It was 2 weeks before he died. He'd called me late, around 10:30, which was unusual. His voice was quiet, cautious, like he was walking on ice he didn't trust. "Hey, Ma, just checking in." I asked if he was okay. He said he was just tired. I asked if things were all right with Caitlin. He paused, then said, "It's fine, just work stress." But I knew something was off. His rhythm was wrong, like someone playing a song they didn't like anymore. Jordan never called me just to check in. Not like that. Not at night. Not sounding like he was bracing for something. And the part that stuck with me, he didn't say "I love you" when we hung up. He always said that. I told Caitlin about it a few days later, back when we were still exchanging polite updates. She waved it off immediately. He hadn't been sleeping, just tired from work. But Jordan had left his job a month before. Voluntarily, supposedly. Some vague story about wanting a reset, the kind of explanation you give when you're hiding the real one. The night after the wake, I started going through his things for the second time. Slower now, looking for things I didn't know to look for before. In the bottom drawer of his desk, under a stack of pay stubs and car registration forms, I found a small black notebook. Most of the pages were blank. The few that weren't had been ripped out, not torn, removed, clean edges like someone had time or intention. The rest of the notebook was filled with little sketches, corners of buildings, the same window drawn 5 different ways, over and over. Some were dark, pressed hard enough to leave indents on the next few pages. I traced my fingers across one. Something about the way the lines dug in. It made me feel like I was intruding on something private, something that had weight. The next morning, Nora stopped by. She and I had been friends since high school. The kind of friend who doesn't ask if she can come in, just brings coffee and wipes your counters while she talks. She sat across from me at the table, sipping her latte like it was any other Thursday. But then she set the cup down and looked at me, sharp. "You know that girl always gave me a weird feeling, right?" I blinked. "Caitlin?" "She's all presentation. Says the right things, knows when to smile, but she never really sees you. You ever notice that? I said it after that barbecue last summer, remember? When she called Jordan J like she was trying on a nickname that didn't fit." I did remember. It rubbed me the wrong way even then, but I'd written it off as youth. Or nerves. Nora leaned in. "If you feel like something's not right, Marian, it's not." After she left, I pulled out the phone records, not texts, not apps, just the raw, unfiltered list of calls, because I needed something that couldn't be edited or polished. And there it was. 12:03 a.m., Jordan Lee to Marian Lee. Duration, Euro por jo poso 3 seconds. Just like the deleted voicemail. He called me. That call wasn't meant for Caitlin. It was meant for me. But something spooked him. Or someone stopped him. I stared at the timestamp until the numbers burned behind my eyes. I tried to imagine him sitting in his car on that dark stretch of highway, thumb hovering over call, trying to decide whether to let me in or shut me out. And I thought about the ripped-out notebook pages, the dark sketches, the silence in his voice. Someone wanted that call erased, and I wasn't going to let them succeed. The phone sat on my kitchen counter like a sealed door. I tried everything. Jordan's birthday, mine, his father's, the first street we lived on, our old dog's name, Toby, with and without the Y. Nothing. I'd never realized how many versions of someone's life can be hidden behind 4 digits. After the 6th failed attempt, the screen locked me out for 15 minutes. I watched the countdown like it was a timer on a bomb. My palms were sweating. There had to be a way in. Some part of him had to be somewhere he couldn't erase. The next morning, I drove to the phone store. One of those glossy chain places with blinking monitors and a sales team that looked barely older than Jordan had been when he got his first flip phone. A young woman in a red polo greeted me at the door. "Can I help you?" I held up the phone like it was evidence. "I'm trying to recover a deleted voicemail. My son passed away recently." Her expression softened, but her voice stayed clipped, trained. "I'm so sorry for your loss. Was the voicemail saved to a backup?" "I don't know. I just know it was there, and now it's gone." She nodded and motioned me toward a side counter. "If it was saved to the cloud, and if you have the credentials, we might be able to recover it. But deleted voicemails aren't stored locally unless they were manually saved, especially if the phone was factory reset." I froze. "Reset?" She typed something into her tablet. "According to this, the last sync was 12 hours before the crash, but the next login was from a different IP address, after the crash." I stared at her. "Are you saying someone accessed his account after he died?" She blinked, caught. "I can't say for sure. I'm just reading what's on the diagnostic. It could have been automatic. Could have been someone who had the password." I gripped the counter. "If I bring someone who might know it, would you help me access the cloud?" She nodded. "If they can verify identity and we get authorization, yes, but it has to be done here." I knew who had the password, or had had it. I drove straight to Caitlin's apartment. She opened the door slower this time. No legal pad in hand. No perfectly timed smile. She looked tired, or maybe just unguarded. "I need the password to Jordan's cloud," I said before she could pretend to be surprised. She blinked. "I told you. I don't have it anymore." "But you did." "I was locked out a few weeks before the accident." "Convenient timing." She crossed her arms. "What are you trying to find, Marion?" "Whatever he left behind." She let out a short breath like she pitied me. "He wasn't hiding anything. He was just sad." "No," I said. "Sad doesn't make people rip pages out of notebooks. Sad doesn't leave 3-second voicemails that vanish. Sad doesn't reset a phone and log into the cloud from a strange location after they're already gone." Her eyes shifted. Barely. But it was enough. "You accessed it," I said. "Did you hear the message?" "I don't know what you're talking about." She started to close the door, but I stopped it with my hand. "You said he didn't mean what he said that night. Those were your words." "How would you know that unless you heard it?" Her lips parted slightly, like she was going to lie, or cry, or scream. But she didn't say a word. She just shut the door, firmly, not slammed, just final. I stood there for a moment, the weight of the silence pressing in around me. She knew, and she wasn't going to help. But grief has a way of sharpening you, making you see patterns where you didn't before. She was protecting herself, not him. I walked back to the car, pulled out the detective's card from my wallet, and stared at the name. Detective Carver. If she wouldn't give me the password, maybe he could get it another way. Or maybe he already had it, and just hadn't told me what he found. The thing about lies is that they don't sit still, they shift. They leak out at the edges when the people who told them forget to hold them in place. I didn't go to the brunch to eavesdrop. It was Nora's idea, a neighborhood women's event at the community center, casual, 6 people who had kids at the same high school Jordan graduated from. I went because I didn't want to sit alone with the silence again, but Caitlin was there, smiling like nothing in her life had changed. I stood by the window, fiddling with a cup of coffee, trying not to stare. Across the room, she leaned close to a woman with dark auburn hair. Susan. I'd seen her once before at the wake, teary-eyed, whispering to Caitlin near the back of the room. A mutual friend, maybe. Or one of those friends who only show up when tragedy makes them relevant again. Caitlin's voice was low, but I caught the edge of it. He was spiraling, Susan. I mean, really spiraling. I couldn't let his mom hear that. Not the way he sounded. Susan's head tilted. Still, I wouldn't have deleted it. Something clanged inside me, like a bolt locking into place. I slipped out of the main room, my heart thudding behind my ribs like it wanted out. I waited near the hall that led to the restrooms. 10 minutes later, Susan came around the corner, looking for the hand sanitizer on the wall. Susan? She turned, surprised. Oh, Marion. I'm so sorry again for your loss. I didn't waste time. You heard the voicemail, didn't you? She blinked. You said you wouldn't have deleted it. She looked down, then back up. Her voice dropped. She said he didn't want it heard. That he was rambling, dark, like he didn't know who he was anymore. But you heard it? She nodded, slow. She played it the morning after he died, at brunch, just once. She said she didn't know what to do with it, that it would wreck you. I felt my body go cold, even though the air in the hallway was warm and stale. She lied to me, I said. Susan shifted uncomfortably. I thought you knew. I assumed she told you eventually. She told me she didn't even hear it. There was a beat of silence between us. Then Susan whispered, almost ashamed. I think she panicked. It was the kind of message you don't forget. What did he say? I only caught part of it. He said, I can't carry this anymore. I'm sorry, Mom. That's all I remember. My knees nearly gave out. The hallway narrowed. I pressed my hand against the wall to stay upright. It wasn't just about grief anymore. This was about truth. About the thing Jordan tried to give me before his life ended. And she stole it. She shared it. With a friend at brunch. And then she erased it, like it had never existed. By the time I got back to my car, my hands were shaking so badly I dropped my keys twice trying to unlock the door. I didn't call Caitlin. I didn't trust myself to keep my voice steady. Instead, I drove straight to the precinct. Detective Carver met me in the hallway outside his office. Same unassuming suit, same easy voice. But when I told him what Susan said, I saw something tighten behind his eyes. She played the message aloud? He asked. At brunch. She told me she never heard it. She deleted it. He scratched his chin, then gave a low whistle. Now that is obstruction, especially if it turns out that voicemail contained any indication of intent. Intent? I echoed. To harm himself. Or, he paused, reading me. Or to name someone. I felt my stomach twist. You think it might have been that direct? I don't know, but people don't delete final messages unless they're afraid of what they say. He pulled out his phone. We'll be contacting Susan. If she confirms she heard it, that opens the door. The door to what? He looked up at me. To a full investigation. Grief is heavy, yes, but fury moves. I didn't sleep that night. I laid awake with the ceiling fan spinning slow circles over my bed and a legal pad propped on my knees. I started drawing lines, dates, times, names, calls, deleted files, the brunch, the voicemail, the 3-second call. I wrote everything down, even things that didn't make sense yet. The quiet voice inside me, the one that had been dulled by shock, was starting to sharpen again. And once it sharpened, it started asking questions. At 9:04 the next morning, I pulled into the gravel lot outside Jordan's old job, a small boxy building off a feeder road just outside the city. No sign on the door, just a suite number and a keypad. He'd worked here for 2 years before quitting without much explanation. Solar and energy solutions, I remembered vaguely. The kind of job that sounded good in conversation but didn't pay enough to keep him steady. I stepped inside and gave my name to the receptionist. She looked startled, then hesitant. A short pause before she said, "I'm sorry for your loss." I nodded. I was hoping to speak to someone in HR. The woman behind the desk glanced down at her screen. I think someone might be available. 5 minutes later, a young man in a light gray blazer came to the front. He introduced himself as Travis from Employee Services. He looked fresh out of grad school. "I just had a couple of questions," I said, lowering my voice. "About the weeks before Jordan left." He glanced around, suddenly cautious. "I'm really not supposed to discuss personnel matters." "I understand, but someone accessed his cloud account after he died, deleted something. I'm just trying to piece together what he might have been dealing with." Travis rubbed the back of his neck. "I don't know much. He didn't give notice. Just walked out, but..." He hesitated. "I do remember something came across my desk a few weeks before that." "What kind of something?" He exhaled. "A report. Internal complaint. He sent it through the anonymous channel, but it wasn't hard to guess it was him. It had details only someone on his team would know." "What was the complaint about?" "I can't say specifics," Travis said, "but it involved safety violations, things that had been covered up. There was a supplier involved, offshore parts that didn't meet regulation." My pulse picked up. "Was Caitlin mentioned?" He frowned. "No." "Why?" "She told him to drop it," I said quietly. "He didn't." Travis was watching me now closely. "Is that what the voicemail was about?" I didn't answer, mostly because I didn't know. But it felt closer, like the outline of something real was finally starting to take shape. After I left, I sat in my car and called the company's HR line. I gave them Jordan's full name and the rough date of the complaint. The woman on the other end of the line sounded prepared. "I'm sorry, but we can't release any internal documentation without a formal request or legal order. I'm his mother." "I understand, but that information is protected under corporate confidentiality and data security law." The more polite she was, the more I felt the fury sharpen under my skin again. I drove home in silence, parked the car, walked into the kitchen and pulled out the yellow legal pad from last night's notes. And I called Nora. "I need your help." She showed up with a bottle of wine and a pen tucked behind her ear. "This is me," she said, pretending I don't love this. She sat with me at the dining table while I drafted a formal records request, using language she copied from a template she found online. Immediate family member, pending investigation, preservation of digital evidence, potential corporate negligence. I didn't know if it would hold water, but I didn't care. I wanted them to know someone was asking, that I wasn't going to just bury my son and let his story get paved over. As we were finishing up, Nora asked, "You think Caitlin knew about the complaint?" I looked down at the pen in my hand. "I think she knew something." Nora hesitated. "So the voicemail, you think it was about the job?" "I don't know, but whatever it was, she didn't want me to hear it." And now I was starting to understand why. The video was silent. No audio. Just grainy black and white footage, time-stamped from the security camera outside Jordan's office lot. A side angle. Not perfect, but clear enough. I sat beside Detective Carver in a small windowless room at the precinct, the monitor too close, the image looping every 30 seconds as he moved frame by frame through the timeline. "There," he said quietly. Jordan's Subaru pulled into the corner spot, the one furthest from the building. He sat in the driver's seat for a while, engine off. His shoulders slumped forward, then back. He rubbed his hands over his face. The timestamp read 12:01 a.m. He looked down at something, his phone probably, then up toward the windshield. I watched him exhale. Even without sound, I could see it. That kind of breath you only take when you're about to say something you don't want to. Carver paused the video. "Here's where we think he recorded the voicemail." Jordan's mouth moved, slowly, deliberately. His eyes flicked upward, toward the rearview mirror, or maybe the sky. Then he dropped the phone into the cup holder and leaned back in the seat, head resting on the headrest, blinking at nothing. I stared at the monitor, willing it to give me sound. Anything. But the silence was complete. Carver hit play again. 15 minutes passed. Then she appeared. Caitlin. She came into frame from the right side of the screen, jogging slightly like she didn't want to be seen. Hair pulled back. Wearing a zip-up jacket I remembered from the wake. She walked directly to the passenger side and opened the door without knocking, got in. The video showed them talking, Jordan gesturing with his hand, then pressing his fingers to his temple. Caitlin leaning forward, mouth tight. Then a moment where he turned to her, both palms raised like he was explaining something. She shoved the door open, got out, and slammed it behind her. She stood there for a second, pacing. Then she looked directly at the car and walked away. Jordan didn't follow. He just sat there, staring forward, until the screen showed him shift into gear and pull away from the lot. "That's the last confirmed footage we have of him," Carver said quietly. I watched the video 5 times. Each time, I saw something new. A twitch in Jordan's jaw, a look Caitlin gave over her shoulder, the way he clutched the steering wheel after she left. I didn't cry in front of Carver, not loudly, at least. Just tears, sliding quietly down my face as the loop started over again. It wasn't just that he looked broken, it was that she saw it, and walked away anyway. Carver leaned back in his chair. "You want my read?" I wiped my cheek with the edge of my sleeve. "Yes." He looked toward the screen again. "It's not criminal, not technically. She didn't threaten him, didn't touch him, but it's cold." I nodded. "He made the call before she got there." "Yep, phone records line up." She heard the message, then deleted it. He didn't answer, just gave a long exhale. "She knew he was unraveling," I said, "and she walked away." "She did." He paused, then added, "But walking away from someone isn't a crime." No, it wasn't. But when someone's dying on the inside and you're the last person they reach for, maybe it should be. I stood. My hands were trembling again, not from sadness, but from something more precise, more pointed. Jordan had tried to leave me a piece of truth. Caitlin had buried it, and now I'd watched it, with my own eyes, as she got in that car, heard whatever he said, and left him sitting there in the dark. But the footage wasn't the only record left. Not anymore. The headline sat like a bruise on the screen. He just wanted peace, a girlfriend's goodbye to Jordan Lee. I hadn't gone looking for it. Nora sent it with a single text. You've seen this, right? The article ran on a local lifestyle blog, the kind that covered town hall meetings, bakery openings, and human stories. It opened with a photo of Caitlin in soft lighting, one hand holding a mug, the other curled gently in her lap. Her eyes were glossy but dry. The caption read, "He was the gentlest person I've ever known." I read every word. He'd been struggling for months. But no one really saw it. He didn't want to be a burden. He was exhausted. By work, by expectations. He told me he felt like he was drowning in silence. He didn't say goodbye, but I think he meant to. I think, in his own way, he finally found peace. She didn't name me, not once, not even as his mother. Just vague references to people who didn't see how much he hurt. No mention of the deleted voicemail, no footage, no final call, just her version of the ending. I closed the laptop and sat still for several minutes, the weight of it pressing down on my chest like a hand I couldn't shove off. This wasn't grief anymore. This was theft. She was stealing the story, polishing the version she could live with, dimming my son into a cautionary tale, the tragic young man who slipped away because life was too heavy. But that wasn't him, and I wasn't going to let her have the last word. I pulled out the shoebox I'd stashed in my closet, the one I used to keep Jordan's birthday cards, his track medals, the memory stick from his old camera. I opened every drawer, every email archive, every shared folder I could think of. I pulled photos from his hiking trip with Nora's kids last fall, Jordan carrying one of the twins on his back, laughing with his face turned toward the sun. A video from the 4th of July cookout, him trying and failing to light sparklers while singing off-key. Texts he sent me that week in May. "I'm gonna fix this, Ma, I promise. Just need a little more time." I printed screenshots, burned backups, labeled every envelope. I built a folder, labeled it Jordan, the whole truth. It didn't matter if a stranger believed me. It mattered that the record existed, that somewhere, even if just in a drawer in my kitchen, there was proof that my son wasn't a shadow of a man who gave up. He was a man who was fighting, and she had erased the evidence. By midnight, I had opened a blank document on my laptop and typed 4 words in bold what my son tried to tell me. I didn't know what the article would become, whether I'd publish it or post it on social media or print it and leave it in a mailbox. But I knew what it would say, that he was trying to tell me something, that someone made sure I didn't hear it. And that silence doesn't mean peace. Sometimes it just means someone got there first. Around 1 a.m., Nora called. I hadn't realized how late it had gotten. "You okay?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "She's telling the world he was broken." Nora paused. "And you're going to tell the truth." "I don't know if I'm ready." "You don't have to be ready," she said. "You just have to be sure." I looked back at the folder on my desk, the photographs, the printouts, the proof. "I am." Nora's voice softened. "Then remember, once you say it out loud, you can't unsay it." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Good." Because I had no intention of taking it back. The email came through at 3:12 a.m., subject line, "I think this is for you." At first, I thought it was spam, just another junk message lost in a flood of old newsletters and ads, but there was no signature. Just a single line of text and one audio attachment. I don't know if this is a mistake. I think this was meant for you. I'm sorry if it's not my place. The file was named VM Audio 1203 partial.im4a. I clicked without breathing. I didn't let myself think. The screen went dark for a moment as the player opened, and then static. Faint, like wind across the mouthpiece, and then, Mom, if you're hearing this. His voice. Jordan's voice. Real. Shaky. There! Something happened, and I need you to know. Click. The file ended. I replayed it 3 times. Same length, 16 seconds. A start, a breath, and then silence. Like the rest had been clipped. I stared at the screen for a full minute before I could move. Who had this? And why now? I hit reply. Who are you? Where did you get this? Why didn't you send it sooner? No answer. Not right away. I called Nora, woke her up. He sent it to the wrong person. What? The voicemail. He tried to send it to me, but it went to someone else. How do you know that? I told her everything. She didn't even ask if I was sure. She just said, forward it to Carver. Now. By 8 a.m., I was in his office. He listened to the clip twice with headphones, then ran his hand over his jaw. You recognize the voice? Of course I do. He nodded. We'll trace the email metadata, but we can already confirm one thing. He pulled up Jordan's phone log. I'd seen it before, but not this line. Sent 12:03 a.m. to marianlee56south@gmail.com. Failed to mariannl33@gmail.com. Delivered. He turned the screen toward me. Jordan typed your email wrong the first time. Swap the numbers. My hand went to my mouth. He tried again right after. Got the wrong one again, but it went through. And the person who got it just sat on it until now. Why now? Carver shrugged. Maybe they Googled him after the blog post went viral. Maybe guilt. Maybe they didn't open it until last night. I looked down at the file again. Mom, if you're hearing this, something happened and I need you to know. I couldn't stop replaying that sentence in my head. He wanted me to hear it. He tried. Twice. And Caitlin had deleted the only other copy. Carver sat forward. We're submitting a formal request for the full message. There's a chance the original file was larger. Most voicemail apps compress and truncate forwarded clips, especially through email. So there could be more? He nodded. If the person didn't tamper with it, there's a backup copy in their app cache. And if there's not, then we have a timestamp, a voice signature, and a traceable recipient, which means we can subpoena both ends. I closed my eyes, just for a second. It wasn't hope exactly. It was the weight of almost having it, the full thing, the complete message. It was real. He said something. He tried. I had told myself that 100 times, that he didn't just disappear, that he reached for me. Now I had proof. Not enough, not yet, but something. A crack in the silence, a piece of him, not erased, not buried. Carver's phone buzzed. He looked down at it, and his brows lifted slightly. What? I asked. He turned the screen toward me. The email sender had replied. There's more. I didn't send it all. I wasn't sure I should. I didn't blink. Send it, I said. Send everything. It came through at 11:42 a.m., the final file. Or what was left of it. Subject. This is all it will let me extract. I didn't even read the message body. I went straight to the attachment. Different file name this time. VM audio shak1203 raffle-corrupted.m4a. I hit play. First, static. Not the kind from weak signal, the kind from a broken file, torn at the edges. Then his voice. Clearer this time. Almost calm. Almost. Mom, I didn't do what they're saying. He paused. I could hear him swallow. If anything happens, please know I... Snap. Then nothing. Just static again. I played it again. And again. I must have played it 20 times before Nora walked through my front door without knocking. She heard it once and sat down at the kitchen table like her knees had stopped working. I didn't do what they're saying. He wasn't spiraling. He wasn't saying goodbye. He was trying to tell me something, defend himself. Caitlin said he was unraveling, I whispered. She said he sounded like he didn't know who he was anymore. Nora looked up at me, voice low. That's not what that sounds like. No, it didn't. He sounded scared, measured, like someone making a record, like someone being watched. We sat in silence while the clip looped again, and then I stood, calm, focused. That switch inside me had flipped again, the one that turns grief into fire. We're pushing it through, I said. The article? No, the records request, to his job. Nora nodded. You want me to write the cover letter? I already did. I opened my laptop and pulled up the PDF we'd drafted last week, the one they'd brushed off the first time with a form email. This time, I attached the voicemail, labeled it clearly, included the timestamp, the metadata, the request for employee whistleblower records in compliance with federal protections. 3 hours later, my phone rang. It wasn't an assistant this time. It was Paul Reynolds, head of HR. His voice was brittle with nerves. I'm not supposed to be calling directly, he said, but I saw the submission, the file, and I want you to know, I remember Jordan. I didn't respond. He cleared his throat. I can't send you anything officially without legal pressure, but I'll tell you this. Yes, he made a report. It was real. It named specific supply vendors. Internal documentation was altered after his submission. And yes, there were conversations, encouragements to drop it. From who? I can't say. Not over the phone. Was Caitlin involved? A pause. I don't know. But she was copied on multiple threads, and she attended 2 internal review meetings after the report was filed. I closed my eyes. He was scared. That's what the message was about. Not his emotions. Not a breakup. Not guilt. He was scared of being blamed, of being set up, of something closing in. If anything happens, please know I... They took that part from me, but not all of it. I hung up the phone and sat back down with Nora, hands still shaking. He was trying to protect himself, I said. Not from some imagined threat. From them. From whatever they were going to pin on him. Nora leaned in. You think Caitlin knew? I think she knew enough. Enough to stay quiet. Enough to delete the only message that could have cleared his name. We didn't say anything for a long time after that. Just let the loop play again. I didn't do what they're saying. If anything happens, Jordan didn't vanish into some sad narrative. He was pushing back, and now I had enough to push back for him. It didn't happen all at once, but quietly, without headlines. First, Caitlin disappeared from social media. Her accounts didn't go private. They vanished, deleted. The blog post was still up, but her photo had been replaced with a stock image of a candle. The comments section was closed. One day, I searched her name and nothing came up except an old internship listing from 6 years ago and a tagged photo from someone else's wedding. Then Jordan's old company, Solvantage, issued a single-sentence statement through their legal team. A private internal matter has been resolved through the appropriate compliance channels. That was it. No apology. No public admission. No mention of Jordan's name. But I noticed the change. The article I'd written, what my son tried to tell me, had started to circulate. Quietly. At first, just among friends and neighbors. Then someone shared it to a whistleblower forum. Then someone else reposted it under a headline, Deleted Voicemail Uncovers Corporate Suppression. It wasn't going viral. but it wasn't invisible either. And the silence that followed wasn't like the first one. This silence had weight, but it also had direction. I wasn't waiting anymore. I wasn't pacing in my kitchen or clinging to the what-ifs. I wasn't asking permission to grieve or understand or speak. I had spoken. I had put it all down. The voicemail, the file, the footage, the truth. It was out in the world now. It wasn't mine to protect anymore. And with that came a kind of peace. Not the kind Caitlin talked about. Not numbness. Not the soft retreat of avoidance. This was something sharper. I took a drive out to Route 219. I hadn't been back since the night the officers came to my door, but I remembered the spot, the curve near the tree line, the guardrail still dented. Someone had placed a wooden bench there, probably the county, maybe one of the other parents who'd lost a kid to that same dark stretch. It overlooked the field just beyond the ditch, where wildflowers had started to grow again. I sat. The wind was soft, dry leaves tumbling across the gravel. A car passed every few minutes, but otherwise it was still. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folded copy of the transcript. The voicemail, what was left of it. I'd typed it out, bolded his name, underlined every breath I could hear between the words. I didn't bring flowers, just this. I slid the paper under the edge of the bench, pinned with a flat stone I found nearby, not to leave a message behind, but to remind whoever stopped next that something had been said. That silence had not been consent. A crunch of footsteps behind me made me turn. A man in his late 50s, maybe older, work boots, oil on his jeans. He nodded at me as he passed, then paused, squinting at the bench. "You here for Jordan Lee?" he asked. I froze. "You knew him?" "Worked with my nephew," he said. "Used to talk shop out by the loading dock. Always asked questions. Smart kid, real decent." I felt something tighten in my throat. "Thank you." He nodded again, slower this time. He was a good one. We all knew it. I looked at him. Then why didn't anyone say it sooner? He shifted, hands in his jacket pockets, looked down. "We figured it wouldn't matter. Or it wouldn't help." He started to walk again, then stopped. "But we should've," he said over his shoulder. "You're right to be angry." I sat alone after that, until the sky started to bruise pink at the edges. The wind picked up. I listened to it. It was quiet, but not empty. I almost didn't go. The flyer had been folded into the pocket of a condolence card Nora brought over weeks ago. I'd glanced at it once, then tucked it under a stack of mail, but that morning, something pulled me to it. No name, just a title. Shared Loss Circle, First Tuesdays, Church Annex Room B. I parked 3 times before I worked up the nerve to go inside. A few people were already seated in the circle by the time I slipped in. Metal folding chairs, styrofoam cups of tea. No one introduced themselves. The room did it for them, a shared quiet that wasn't awkward, just familiar. I didn't plan to speak. I didn't even sit close to the center. But when the facilitator asked, "Is there anyone here with something they need to say?" the silence drew me forward. "I lost my son," I said. A few heads nodded gently. No one blinked. It was labeled an accident, but it wasn't that simple. Still no judgment, no waiting for a reason to look away. I told them everything, not in order, not neatly, just the pieces that still sat in my mouth like broken glass, the deleted voicemail, the call that was meant for me, the corporate cover-up, the silence that followed, the parts I still didn't have answers for. I didn't cry until I said, "He tried to warn me. He tried to leave something." And for weeks, I thought I'd lost it. That's when the woman across from me reached for my hand and didn't let go. She had silver-streaked hair and dark eyes like mine. "I would have lost my mind," she whispered. A third woman, maybe 35, with tear-reddened cheeks, shook her head softly. "You didn't. You used it. That stayed with me. You used it." After the meeting, I sat in the parking lot and listened to Jordan's partial message again. The same clipped line, the same half sentence, and I thought about how many other mothers never got even that. I started digging. Not into the investigation, not this time. Into the inbox that had been quietly filling ever since I published what my son tried to tell me. They'd written from everywhere: Nebraska, Georgia, Northern California, names I'd never heard, subject lines like, "He called me the night before." They didn't believe me either. What I wish I could have said back. Some included voice notes. Some sent journal entries, receipts, screen grabs from text messages that haunted them. And in all of them, I saw it. The same flicker. The thing no one knew where to put. The final thing left behind. A message. A phrase. A line you play again and again until it bruises. I started organizing them. Creating folders, logging the timestamps. I didn't know what I was building, only that it was bigger than me. Then one night, I opened the voice memo app on my phone, hit record, and said, "My name is Marion Lee. My son Jordan died last spring. What I didn't know at the time was that he left me something. Something small, something fractured, but it saved me." That became the opening line of Last Messages. Not a blog, not an op-ed, a podcast. I didn't tell anyone at first. I just uploaded the first episode, my story, and let it sit. By the end of the week, it had 600 downloads, then 1,400, then 5,000. People didn't just listen, they submitted. Messages, audio, confessions, even voicemails left for people who never called back. Each week, I told one story, just one voice, one moment someone almost missed. And in each one, I asked the same quiet question. If we really listened to people, really listened, how many of them were already telling us the truth? It was the fourth episode. A woman's voice, low and careful. I'd renamed her Emily to protect her privacy, but her story stayed mostly intact. "My daughter didn't leave a note," she said, "but she left a voicemail. Her boyfriend deleted it, told us it was too painful to hear, said it wouldn't help anything." I heard the tremble under her words, the same one I'd carried for weeks after Jordan died, the same one I'd buried under articles and subpoenas and sound mixing. But then she said something that made me sit upright in my chair. "His name was Jordan," she said. "Jordan Lee. We only met him once at Christmas. Something never sat right." I paused the recording. My stomach dropped. Not because I doubted her, but because she wasn't confused. Her daughter had been older than Jordan. This was before me, before Caitlin. I called her immediately. She answered on the second ring, cautious. "I'm sorry. Is this Marion?" "Yes," I said. I just listened to your message. Are you saying Jordan dated your daughter?" She exhaled. "No, sorry. That part's confusing. My daughter, Maya, she dated a girl, a woman. Her name was Caitlin. Caitlin Reese." Everything in me went still. "She didn't mention Jordan," she added. "But I remember Maya saying her new girlfriend had an ex who wouldn't let go. And when we started asking questions after Maya's accident, we were told she was emotionally unstable, that she'd been erratic for months, that she was pulling away. And the voicemail? It was on her phone. We know that. She left it for her brother. He saw the notification. But when he went to play it the next day, it was gone. She didn't cry when she said it. Just let the words land like facts, like a body on cold ground. I hung up, pushed away from my desk. The walls felt too close. It wasn't just Jordan. I sent the audio to Carver with the subject line, "You need to hear this." He called an hour later. No preamble, just, "Where did this come from?" She submitted it to the podcast. Said her daughter dated Caitlin. Said a final voicemail was deleted. Same language, same excuse. He was quiet for a moment. Then, "I'm pulling the file. I can't promise anything public. Not yet. But we're going to open a quiet inquiry." "A formal one?" "Yes. Quiet, but formal. Let me be clear. If this pattern holds, we're not just looking at obstruction anymore. We're looking at something closer to coercive control, possibly worse." I swallowed. So it wasn't just my son. No, and if you hadn't kept pushing, we wouldn't know that. After the call, I sat in the dark for a while. The voicemail looped on my screen again. "Mom, I didn't do what they're saying. If anything happens, please know I..." The message had changed over time. Not in words, but in meaning. At first, it sounded like desperation, then like fear, then like a warning. Now it sounded like a pattern. Caitlin hadn't just deleted something out of guilt. She had done this before. She had a script. She knew how to isolate, how to manage grief in real time, how to silence the parts that didn't fit the story she wanted told. And the world let her. Because she was calm, pretty, composed. Because people like her know how to package tragedy in ways that don't make anyone uncomfortable. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want headlines. I just wanted the pattern to stop. The silence she'd created, the carefully curated version of heartbreak and helplessness, was ending now. Not with a bang, but with a voice. And then another. And another. Not one final message. Dozens. Hundreds. I opened the inbox for last messages. There were 30 new submissions waiting, but one caught my eye. The subject line read, "You're not the only one she erased." I clicked it open. I waited until midnight to upload the episode. Not because it was some symbolic hour. I just wanted to be alone with the choice. One last moment of silence before the sound took over. The file name was simple. Episode 12. This is what remains. I didn't record a long introduction. No music, no sponsor, no preamble. Just my voice. My name is Marion Lee. My son, Jordan, left a message the night he died. It was never meant to be lost, but it was. What remains is short, incomplete, but it's enough. Then I played it. One time. No loop. No effects. "Mom, I didn't do what they're saying. If anything happens, please know I..." And then, nothing. I followed it with a letter. I didn't read it aloud. I just posted it beneath the episode link, in plain text. This is what remains. It isn't the full message. It doesn't explain everything. But it's proof. Proof he spoke. Proof he reached out. Proof he was more than the version that was allowed to survive. If you're someone who needed to hear this, for yourself, for someone you've lost, for someone still here, I hope you'll believe me when I say the end of someone's life is not the end of their voice, even if it's fractured, even if it's short, even if it's erased by someone who didn't want it to be heard. This is my son's voice, and it still matters. Marion. By morning, the episode had been shared over 200,000 times. By afternoon, I couldn't keep up with the inbox. Dozens of messages from other families, not just mothers, brothers, wives, cousins, friends who said they knew something was off, but didn't know how to prove it. Co-workers who remembered someone saying, "If anything happens." But no one asked what they meant. One man wrote, "My nephew left a voice note. His girlfriend deleted it. She told us it was just noise. I never thought to question it." Another, "I didn't know how to say it out loud. Your voice helped me find mine." Carver called 2 days later. He didn't say much, just that the investigation was widening, that they were connecting names now, that they might need me to testify eventually. I said I would. If it came to that, I would. But I wasn't waiting for justice anymore. I wasn't even hoping for it. The record existed. That was enough for now. The house is quiet again. But it's not the old silence, not the heavy, wet quiet of something being covered. This one breathes. This one has space. I still play the voicemail sometimes, just to hear his voice. But it doesn't hit like it used to. It doesn't feel like the last thing. It feels like the piece that changed everything. Last night, Nora came over. She brought 2 small bottles of champagne and an old photo of Jordan with her twins on his back, all of them mid-laugh. We sat at the kitchen table, just like we used to, while the podcast stats ticked higher on my laptop screen. She lifted her glass. "To the voice," she said. I lifted mine. To the one that made noise, even in silence. We clinked. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was holding on to the past. I felt like I was carrying it forward. It was early, the kind of morning that doesn't ask anything of you yet. No cars, no emails, just mist lifting slowly off the river, like the world itself was exhaling. I parked near the trailhead off Maple and walked without checking the time. The gravel was soft beneath my shoes, still damp from last night's rain. Sunlight hadn't touched the water yet, just a low golden haze catching in the branches above. This was where Jordan used to bike when he wanted to think, or not think. I remembered him barreling down this path in high school, headphones in, shirt tied around his waist, always just out of reach if I tried to call after him. I never minded. He looked so free out here, untethered, like the air loved him. Now I walked it slowly, tracing the turns he knew by heart. When the trail bent toward the overlook, I stopped. There was a long, flat stone there, the kind that wasn't quite a bench, but close enough. I sat down and pulled my phone from my coat pocket. The screen lit up, familiar. The file sat right there at the top of the list. VMware Audio 1203, Raffle, corrupted, .pem4a. The same one. The only one. I put in my earbuds, hit play. "Mom, I didn't do what they're saying. If anything happens, please know I..." That was all. The same cut-off breath. The same unfinished thought. I'd heard it hundreds of times now. I knew every crack in his voice, every hesitation, every space between the words where more should have been. But this time, I didn't cry. I didn't flinch or brace for impact. I smiled. Because the part I'd spent months searching for, the part they said was lost, erased, unsalvageable, I could hear it now, plain as anything. I didn't need him to finish the sentence anymore, because I knew how it ended. I said it aloud, soft but certain. I tried. And I loved you. The wind stirred as I spoke, brushing past my face like someone had heard me. And maybe someone had. I sat there a long while, just breathing, just listening. The birds were louder now, the mist thinning. Somewhere in the distance, a bike chain rattled, and for a moment, I imagined it was him. Then I stood, brushed the dirt off my hands. I didn't come here to say goodbye, just to say it back. When I got home, I turned on the kettle and opened my laptop. The episode was still climbing, 500,000 listens and counting, but I didn't check the comments, didn't scroll. Instead, I opened my files and hovered over the audio. VM Audio 12003, rawful, corrupted, .4a. No, that wasn't what it was anymore. I right-clicked and renamed it, the message I kept. I moved it into the folder labeled Jordan, the whole truth. Inside it, the photo of him from last summer with Nora's twins on his shoulders, a scanned copy of his whistleblower report, the scanned funeral program, a photo of the roadside bench where I'd left the transcript, the email with the subject line, "You're not the only one she erased." Evidence, yes, but also memory, also proof, not of how he died, but of how hard he tried to live, how much he had left to say, how little they got to take from him in the end. Later that evening, Nora came over again. She knocked with her elbow, hands full, a takeout bag in one, 2 mini champagne bottles in the other. "Celebrating anything?" I asked as I opened the door. She shrugged. "Quiet." We ate on the porch. No podcast recording, no legal letters. Just 2 women, a soft sky, and a story that had finally been told. When the sun dipped behind the trees, Nora lifted her glass. "To the voice," she said. I clinked mine against hers. "To the one that made noise," I answered, even in silence. We drank, and I didn't feel like I was holding on anymore. I felt like I was carrying him forward, because his voice didn't vanish. It was heard. And if nothing else, I knew this much. His words didn't die. She just didn't get the last one.